a special meeting to discuss the fiscal year 2021 budget. And we'll discuss the dog later. And Tom Harwich, let me...
Larry, if I may, I just want to do as Scott does. We're going to hit the record button in a moment.
Okay, now I'll start again.
And that way we'll be able to do a rebroadcast.
Okay.
All right, so bear with me for a moment.
This conference will now be recorded.
This is the Board of Selectmen meeting for Wednesday, May 27th, 2020 at 4 p.m. with the Board of Selectmen and the Town of Harwich department heads. So everybody right now is on mute all. I'll turn the call over in a moment to Chairman Larry Ballantyne to start the meeting. Once we open it up for discussion, you'll want to unmute your phone or your device. So Larry, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Joe. Let me officially open the March 27th, 2020 Board of Selectmen's meeting. The intent of this meeting is discussion.
May, Larry.
Yes.
It's May.
Who's me?
It's May, not March.
May. Okay, May. Time flies. Thank you, Don. May 2020 Board of Selectmen's meeting. The intent of this meeting is to discuss our budget going into next year. And as you know, this year is becoming difficult. Next year likely will become more difficult because of all the shutdowns. We're going to have significant revenue decrease during the year. But and our initial reaction to that, as you know, is we've been postponing most capital budget items as we discussed going into the town meeting. There's a penalty for doing that, of course. We'll probably pay later for increased expenses having delays, but we only have so much, our revenues are limited. Reason for this meeting, and I very much appreciate Joel's pulling this together, is just to have an open discussion that we're all in this together. I know you've all been working hard. What we're looking forward to is any ideas that we can work together creatively to get this through when we know we'll have some limited resources. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Larry. And to the department heads, I know that you've noticed over the last several weeks that there have been meetings with the board in executive session regarding collective bargaining, and that's been an opportunity to really get an understanding of our various obligations that exist both through collective bargaining, personal services contracts, and other things. And the purpose, as Chairman Ballantyne has said, is for this today really is to first give department heads a heads up in a sense of the headwaters that we are facing in fiscal year 20 and the stronger headwinds, I should say, excuse me, stronger headwinds that we expect to impact us on fiscal year 21. As you may know, the board accepted my recommendation. Their meeting last night. We are postponing annual town meeting, and we're hopeful that Monday, September 28th will be our annual town meeting. And then it's an annual town meeting that we hope to be as broad and robust as what we've seen every other spring, every other early May event to be. And as Larry mentioned, to do that, we will begin a process of dealing with a 1/12 budget, so-called, which is a monthly appropriation plan that we'll need to formulate for July, then submit for August and September until such time as the board and town meeting have adopted an operating budget. As Larry mentioned, we know that we're being impacted in our revenue line items, and that will have an impact, obviously, on how we budget going forward. Gone are the days when we had the $1.8 million deficit that we all struggled with. but reached a conclusion on when we had the March 7th, 2020 budget meeting in anticipation of our town meeting. I know many of you have asked either directly or indirectly. We are not announcing on this call any measures, any actions, certainly not any layoffs or anything of that nature. The intent of this call was to give you folks the first heads up as the board will start using their weekly meetings starting on Monday, June 1st, to continue to strategize on both where we're at for updated revenue projections and what we see as decisions that have to be made. This meeting is an expression, or is meant to be an expression, of the partnership that continues to exist between the Board of Selectmen, administration, and the department heads. Quite frankly, even though this is a public meeting and will be rebroadcast on Channel 18, I know I speak for the board when we say that we wanted you folks to have a conversation and hear it from us first before we got into the planning and the decision making. So again, there are no specifics. We are not announcing layoffs or any job actions of any sort. What we're really doing is letting you know that over the next few days and weeks, I will be reaching out to all of you as department heads. I'll be reaching out to the respective collective bargaining associations and everybody to start strategizing on what we can do to react to the devastating financial effects of COVID-19. Larry, I'll turn it back to you if you want to open it up for your board or for the department heads or any other action.
Thank you, Joel. Any comments from my fellow board members?
Yeah, Larry?
Let me, Don first, and then you, Steve.
Yeah, you can't open anything up until you poll us that we're all here. It's a virtual meeting.
Okay, I'll take a roll call. Don, you can start.
Aye.
Steve?
Here.
Michael?
I'm here.
And Ed?
Here.
And of course, I'm here. Call, so the meeting. Steve?
Yeah, I think one of the important things that at least I, and I'm sure all of my colleagues on the board, wanted to convey to the department heads is how important a role they play in the process here, and how much we appreciate not only what they're doing today, but what they've done through this really time. And we really want all of the department heads to know that you're part of this team. And the reason that we're having this call is to make sure you know you're part of this team and that you're part of the decision-making process. I know that Joe just said he's going to reach out to, but you should know that any ideas, any thoughts, any concerns, you should feel free to talk to Joe and talk to the selectmen, because it is such a difficult time. And as we move into the 1/12 budget, it's going to be even more difficult, and we're going to need help in defining the 1/12 budgets as we move forward. So we really wanted you to know that you are such an important part of this process, and that we greatly appreciate what all of you are going through today and what we're all going to go through as we can try to make sure this town functions in a way that serves all of the taxpayers.
Thank you, Steve. Michael?
Yeah, I don't think Stephen could have said it any better. And I just wanted to thank all the department heads for the sacrifices that they've made. Certainly over this. I also wanted to just extend my apologies, because I did learn that a lot of people were anxious about this meeting today, and I'm not sure that the board did a good enough job either instructing staff or ourselves, letting you know that this wasn't a going to go into and learn that they were going to lose part of their departments or lose their jobs. So my apologies as a board member for you not getting enough communication on what this meeting was about. But thank you all. And as Stephen said, we have a lot of important decisions to make. So guidance from each department head is going to be extremely important.
Thank you, Michael. Ed?
I think Michael and Stephen said it well. I just know that it's going to be a tough year, and we're going to need to be communicating well to make it through it. So feel free at any time to let us know what's going on.
Thank you, Ed. I think we're all in agreement that the communication and joint action is critical. And just to reiterate what people have been saying, this is the start of the process, not the end. So we'll continue to have these hopefully open discussions and input. Let me turn it over to anyone who wishes to comment outside of the board. I need one person to start the discussion, I think.
Well, just a reminder, *6 if you want to unmute your phone or click on the microphone icon.
Sheila?
Hi, everybody. How you doing? So as you go forward, as you said, on June 1st, with sort of trying to plan what this is going to look like, I'm gathering that maybe there'll be stuff on the agenda that will indicate, you know, which departments are going to be discussed, or is it going to be sort of a blanket discussion? I kind of don't have a feeling of what it's going to look like. So just wondering if there's any guidance for that.
Sheila, let me start, and then probably Joe will jump in, but I think we're some time away from looking at specific departmental issues. The issues we have, quite frankly, right now is some assumptions on what our revenue may be is changing as we go through the various governor's directives on COVID-19. It seems like almost daily what businesses may open, how many visitors we expect to have, potential government aid. And so I think the first, certainly the first few meetings will be more of a broad base of, you know, what overall revenues can be before we get into the type specifics you're talking about. Joe, you want to add to that?
Thanks, Larry. Actually, I think you're pretty much spot on. Sheila, as Larry said, what I would expect for June 1st is a public presentment of statement of where we think we are with revenue impacts for fiscal year 20, as well as fiscal year 21, just to start getting that out there in the community so that everybody understands that what we think we're up against right now, and continue that discussion going forward. As we get into concrete ideas and solutions, we would have more discussions at the department level long before we go to the public level.
Let me make one other comment, because I think, as Michael said, this meeting may have scared a few of you. But, you know, in terms of expenses, obviously we have personnel expenses, but we have debt expenses, capital budget items. We have some other issues that we can worry about expenses. And the hierarchy of things, any discussion about personnel or departmental will be the very last thing we take up. We don't have a lot of, we're not overstaffed. I don't know how else to say that. We don't have a lot of leeway in what we do. And so we'll take the other avenues first. And hopefully that will be all the avenues we have to take. But we need this discussion going forward as a planning tool.
Larry?
Yes.
Chief Clark here.
Chief.
I want to just make a comment on having gone through the 05 situation with the layoffs and the drastic budget. And that was devastating to the community and certainly to the departments, and we were all involved. But I just want to remind everyone that the glass half full on this is that the economy didn't cause this. Like then, we were in economic tough times. This is caused by just the opposite. It's a virus, and most viruses pass, like this one is going to. So the economy prior to this was extremely strong, and I think the Cape is doing very well. We had high anticipations of doing really, really well. So that's going to come back. So we need to really work together and we're going to have to make drastic cuts, but they're temporary. And we know that on the other side of this is a much brighter day. So together, I believe, and we know in 12 to 18 months, I firmly believe we'll be back on track.
Thank you, Chief.
Larry, well,
Anyone
everybody.
else? Yes.
It's Don. This hasn't been said quite this way, but what we're really looking for is creativity. You know, maybe doing things somehow differently than we've been doing them that might save money without sacrificing or jobs, but how everything interrelates and how we can do things in possibly more effective manner so that we could shake out some savings to apply. It really is, as Norm just said, it's really a revenue problem that we've got, but we have to be able to address it somehow. So we do need some creative thought going into this.
Yeah. Thank you, Don. I appreciate that. And I also, I think an additional comment on that is that we've asked already some people to do things that they were hoping not to do. An example is Amy and Conservation Commission. We had planned to hire help doing the annual monitoring of Piper plovers, and because of fear of revenue, cut back on that and asked Amy and volunteers to step forward and take that on. Don't want that to escape because we very much appreciate the effort to do that. And we may have to, Joe may have to ask people or ask for help in other areas as well if we to get our job done with the personnel that we have.
Larry, Steve Ford.
Steve, yes.
Is Joe and/or Carol going to give a sense of where we are today, or is that at another point in time for the people on the phone?
Right. For the revenue, Joe, I'll ask you.
So I will defer to Carol if she wants to review her revenue report from last week, or if there's an updated number, or if we want to do this Monday evening.
Hi, everyone.
I would think
Or not is, I guess, the issue.
Yep, no secrets here. So
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to review the current fiscal year first?
Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, I think that the current fiscal year, we've certainly collected real estate and personal property for the fourth quarter in larger quantities than we originally anticipated, which is really great news. All of the tax services had sent in their $9 million worth of payments right on the original due date or before, which was May 1st. As you all may be aware, the board had authorized real estate and personal property payments to be extended, the due date to be extended to June 1st, and also waived interest and penalties to June 30th. So we do expect to receive quite a bit more in those payments. Right now, we've got outstanding about $2.7 million. I expect to at least collect another $1.5 million before the end of the fiscal year. So that's great news. What's also some really good news is the golf department is more functional than we originally anticipated when these numbers were put together for the current fiscal year. So they're doing very well. They're very busy. Roman and I talk quite often about where he thinks his revenue stream is going to be. For this fiscal year, I am anticipating a surplus, and that's all based on the fact that I think that we're going to come close to expending all of our salaries and wages. We've got debt that we are still obligated to pay, and school districts that we're obligated to pay, and some other items as well, in addition to some health insurance that, of course, is one of our requirements. So I think this year we're going to end up with a surplus. Do I think it's going to be as large as it has been in prior years? No. But I think we're going to be okay in FY20. FY21 is where a lot of work has been done estimating revenues and shortfalls in revenues. What's really curious is how lodging is going to be opened up. What are the restrictions that are going to be placed on that? What are the restrictions that may be placed on restaurants and short-term rentals? How many people are going to buy new cars? And how many people are going to go to the beach? Things like that we've been anticipating. In addition to that, I do think that there's a bunch of people out there that aren't going to be able to pay their taxes in the first couple of quarters. So we reduced that as well. Right now, after reviewing some numbers again with Ronan at the end of last week, we increased our revenue estimations for golf, which is great. So right now I'm thinking we're going to be about $4.1 million in a shortfall for FY21 in revenue. I was able to take part in a webinar today that was hosted a week or so ago, and it talks about the CARES Act funding. And there's special legislation that's out there now that may allow, on the federal level, the CARES Act money to be used for revenue reductions. That hasn't gone through yet at all, but we're certainly got our fingers crossed with that because we may be able to apply some of those funds. So that's what I have right now. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Carol? Thank you, Carol. I guess just one comment, and Joe, I think you'll probably cover this as well, but we've had a hiring freeze. We will, and I just want to be sure, because sometimes perception is more important than the fact, but we will, during the summer, need to hire some additional part-time help to follow the governor's directives on social distancing, spacing at the beaches and the golf course, cleaning bathrooms. It does turn out to be able to get reimbursed through that special effort through the CARE Act, so it won't come out of the town budget. But occasionally, even though we have a hiring freeze on, you may see they will hire someone, but there are two different revenue streams that we expect to cover that. And it's necessary if we want to keep our beaches and golf courses, other public areas in town open. So I'm hoping that you understand, and if you question something like that, please get back to Joe and for details in case something else is happening.
Larry?
Yes, Michael?
Yeah, just due to a couple other comments that were made about the revenue loss, I don't want to minimize the fact that we're looking at a $4.1 million shortfall in any way. And I would say that, the country is facing a giant economic disaster at this point. Small business and the heartbeat of the U.S. is about to take a huge hit. This could be a problem that extends well into 2022 and 2023 as people lose businesses, our restaurants that are absolutely struggling. So we've built our budget in a big way based on a 3.5% to 7% growth over the last 7 years. So as we look at budgets and we look at cuts, and I'm going to publicly, and I've said it in our meetings, the last thing I want to do is lay anyone off. So as far as I'm concerned, bodies last, people last. All these families will be affected. But as we look at creative budgets and things that we can do without and how we can change things, I think everybody should recognize that this is not going to be a 2020, 2021 thing. It's going to go on for a while, and the economy is certainly going to suffer, not just our revenue.
Thank you, Michael. Other comments?
Larry?
Yeah, Don?
Larry, this is
Who's? I'm sorry.
It was Don, but do you want to?
Don, let me hold off and let the other person comment. I'll get back to you.
Sure.
Larry, how you doing? This is Dan over at Water
Dan,
Department.
yes.
I had a question regarding the 1/12 budget process, and maybe Joe or Carol that can answer. With the Water Department, obviously, as everyone can imagine, we pump a lot more water in the summer than we do the winter. And as we start to move into this 1/12 process, you know, our electric bills from July, August, September are more than 1/12 of our annual electric line item. Is there any provisions to allow us to fund it where we need it? Or is it purely 1/12 of the prior year?
Would you like me to answer?
Go ahead, Carol, please.
So we've been meeting with the Department of Revenue. We've been receiving some guidance. We're still waiting for additional guidance. But based on the fact that, you know, certainly all of us down here in the Cape have different types of expenditures that we experience in the first quarter of the fiscal year. We're just going to have to explain it. That's all. We'll have to provide an explanation for anything that is not, you know, merely a 1/12 budget, taking your budget and just dividing it by 12. So I don't think it's, certainly don't think it's insurmountable.
Dan, does that answer your question?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Don, I'll go back to you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, because Norman had brought this up, and I want to talk about the elephant in the room just quickly to dispel it. I can't overemphasize, this is not 2005. This is not, the circumstances are different. There is not a single member of the board that's thinking, well, we can just go back to the public and ask for the additional revenues in the form of an override, because of the very nature of what Stephen and Michael were talking about. This is something that's going on everywhere. It's not just us. It's a question of us being creative, looking forward. So I just caution you, please don't look back at that circumstance and say to yourself, oh, it's happening again, because this is more like we're in trouble. We know that the trouble exists now. We don't know how long it's going to last, but I do believe, and I believe every member of the board believes, we can get through this together if we understand, you know, what kind of efforts collectively we can make to reduce the cost of operation.
Thank you, Don. Anyone else wish to comment?
This conversation, I've gotten a lot out of it. I actually didn't think that you were going to be announcing people were going to be losing their jobs. But what I do appreciate is that there is communication and that we're being made part of this. I just wanted to let Joe know, he knows that I'm going to be out for a week and a half to 2 weeks. Please call me on my cell phone or text me while I'm out, because I won't be able to use the computer very easily. But definitely, if there's anything that I can assist with, or anything, I'm happy to do that via my cell phone, which I think you've got. So please feel free to reach out to me while I am out.
Thank you, Charlene. I do note that you make that offer to me, but I'll let that ride. But I think we're coming to an end. Yeah, I don't want to preach to you all, but we can take this two ways. We can look around at your neighbors, the different pictures, people on this, and we have a lot of experience in town government, starting from the town administrator, the town clerk. And indeed, I won't put you on the spot of how many years you've been involved with town government, but we have a lot of experience. We have a very positive working relationships between among department heads and town staff. We can make this actually what we want it to be. I don't want to leave this on a pessimistic note. We can also use this opportunity to look at some of our operations. Can we improve efficiencies? Can we learn new tasks to help each other out? And if Michael and Steve are right, and they're usually right, this is a more than, yeah, I'll say that. This is unlikely. This is certainly going to be more than a 1-year process. So we can come out of this, or even in the middle of it, learn that some of the things we thought were sacred are not sacred, and we could do things in a more. So please be open to that. Keep communications open, and we'll try to do the same. Joe, I'll turn it back to you.
Really, Mr. Chairman, I'd have nothing to add to that. I thought it was very well said, but just want to thank the board and the department heads being able to be on the call in the meeting and participating. And as you've said, we will continue the communication and the partnership in the days, weeks, and months ahead for sure.
Let me ask one final question to the department heads. Is this for we do this? We want to do it every weekly, but monthly or something when we have this. Even when we're all back in town, maybe a video conferencing is the best way of doing it, just so we get everyone together. What's your feedback on this?
Where?
I think it's absolutely worthwhile. This is Amy Usowski. Thank you.
Okay,
I really appreciate this.
Larry, during the
Yes.
Chief Clark,
Yes.
during these times, this communication is very valuable. It's reassuring to department heads, and I know it's reassuring to the employees of the town because they are apprehensive. So more communication is better.
I assume so, but I don't want to take anything for granted. That's one thing I have learned, and so it's good to ask. Wanted to ask the question. Thank you, Chief. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We'll do this by roll call again then, as Don reminds me, this is a video conferencing activity. So I'll start with Steve.
Aye.
Michael? Ed?
Aye.
Don?
Michael can stay on, but
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you, Michael.
I couldn't find my picture anymore.
I know, it keeps changing. All right. And I'm an aye as well. So, folks, have a good evening. Enjoy it looks like it's summer finally.
We appreciate it.
thanks, everyone.